I think you should experiment in understanding your consumer. You should be creative in ways in which you can better understand your consumer. Because once you found the creative message or the creative brand platform that works, you should not change that creative platform just because you get tired of it. So I think, yes, in the creativity space, but more in the insight generation space. So don't get bored by methods. Get bored by how little you know about your consumer.
Welcome to Insights Unlocked, an original podcast from User Testing, where we bring you candid conversations and stories with the thinkers, doers, and builders behind some of the most successful digital products and experiences in the world, from concept to execution.
Welcome to the Insights Unlocked podcast. I'm Nathan Isaacs, Principal Content Marketing Manager at User Testing. And joining us today as host is User Testing's CMO, Johan Reed. Welcome, Johan.
Thanks, Nathan. It's great to be here.
And our guest today is Sorin Patilinet. Sorin is a marketing strategist, engineer, and author who helps brands grow by combining science, creativity, and technology. He currently works with PepsiCo's global marketing teams to advance best practices in marketing effectiveness. Before that, he led global marketing research at Mars, where he built award-winning measurement tools that shaped better advertising and media decisions across the industry. He's also the author of the new book, Marketing Effectiveness, Applying Marketing Science for Brand Growth. Welcome to the show, Sorin.
Thank you, Nathan. And thank you, Johan, for having me here.
It's our pleasure. We're glad you could join us, and congratulations on your new book. That's pretty phenomenal news.
It is. I mean, it's like it's 1 month old, but it still feels weirdly real. I was in London last week, and I saw it for the first time in a bookstore in Waterstones, and it was like I think it was one of the highlights of the year so far. So I think it's hard to beat that.
Must be a great feeling to see your work on the shelf out there. Absolutely. Where people can get it. That's amazing.
Yeah, and a bit humbling because it was like next to David Ogilvy and Byron Sharp and all these kind of like people I look up to. And it's fantastic. It's a fantastic feeling. So I hope it won't stay there. I hope it will sell and it will be reordered.
Yeah, it's better to not see it on the shelf, right?
Yeah.
What inspired you to write it? And what are you hoping that marketers will take away from it?
I was very much, I think it's a cliche to say that you wanted to write the book you wish you had when you started your career, but it's exactly what made me write this book. And don't get me wrong, I think we have a lot of great insights, a lot of sources of information in the marketing space. I mean, we have numerous academics that became like star personalities and are everywhere. We have amazing researchers from agencies and even research companies that are sharing their knowledge with the wide world. However, I felt that there's a missing voice in all this conversation, and that's the voice of the brand, the voice of the advertiser. And practically the reason why that voice is not that present is because we don't have anything to sell. We are here to make our brands grow and our brands ahead of our competitors, but we do have a great experience that's complementary to the one that the academia and the research practitioners are bringing. And I felt that this is a great opportunity for me to be part of that conversation and to leave something behind. And I hope that this book will provide a kickstart to anyone who will read it in whatever they will do next in marketing.
I love that. I love that notion, and I don't think it's strange to say that you wrote a book that you wish you had. I feel like that's the only logical thing to do to help marketers have the tools that we wish that we had when we were starting our marketing journey. I think what struck me is that you're really focusing on not just sort of a tactic or a KPI, or you're really sort of zooming out and talking about a system approach, systems thinking. Can you talk a little bit about that and why you chose to focus on the systems aspect?
I think it comes from my background. I'm a trained engineer. I studied 5 years telecommunication engineering, and then never worked a day in my life in engineering. I loved advertising. I loved marketing. I loved understanding people much more than understanding systems. Um, and but I've took my the way of thinking. I've took it with me throughout my career, and system thinking is something that's at the core of how engineers think, how you plan the world, and how you should think about most complex processes in the world. And it's one of the lenses through which I also look at marketing. We tend to sometimes to oversimplify everything. We tend to think that marketing is just community. It's just advertising. We are for some tech companies, the marketing department is the department that does the leaflets. For some advertisers, because price is no longer under their remit as marketeers, or because products is in R&D, the only thing that you have in your scope as a marketeer is advertising. So that's why you tend to put the equal sign between advertising and marketing. And I'm trying to bust that myth. I'm trying to bring as you say, I mean, to go at a higher level, to think that marketing is not just advertising. Marketing is how effectively you apply your strategy, how effectively you think about pricing, product distribution, media, content, and also measurement. And all those give you a holistical view of marketing effectiveness. That should be the lens through which you should qualify your performance of the brand, not just whether my ad worked or my ad had was liked or not.
What do you think the barriers are for people who perhaps didn't grow up with an engineering mindset to adopting this? Because when I also started my career studying engineering, and I think it makes tremendous sense to me. But as with many things that seem to make sense on the surface, you always ask the question, then why doesn't everyone else see it this way? So what's your perspective on that?
So I think, I mean, I've looked a lot into system thinking, and it does require a lot of cognitive effort to take into account every kind of detail. So, and sometimes you don't have the time. It's not that you don't have the brain power. You simply need to make a decision like in that second. And basically you narrow down on the specific element that you want to think about. As they said in Silicon Valley, move fast and break things. That's one strategy of going to the market, but that's not taking into account all the impacts on the entire system is a miss. But it is not the only growth strategy. Therefore, so I think, I mean, pure real life pressures is what prevents us to always think in system, and maybe some cognitive load, which I think will be solved easily with the advancement of technology. I think we have already access to amazing tools that allow us to basically look at all the repercussions of all our decisions across the ecosystem that decision might touch.
I think that's an interesting point, because it's systematic thinking supported by systems, because you need to be able to look at the data across all of the different elements of the system to understand how it's interacting. Is your sense, as you've spoken with people about this, is your sense that most companies have that or lacking that? Is that the place to start with systems thinking, is with the systems? Or
so I'm gonna give like an unexpected answer, is that my approach in the book was to elevate the conversation to a system of marketing effectiveness. Every single company that I came across has their system. So it's not that we don't have the knowledge. There's so much information out there. It's just about picking the right kind of method, KPI, metric that you want to use. I think really what separates great companies with from not so great companies, if I don't know if if you may say so, is their ability to implement those insights and to execute that system, that holistic marketing effectiveness system, in real life. And that's the hard part. I think even looking towards the future, I think we're moving into an age in which information will no longer be the currency. We know exactly what we need to do. I think it's how that will be the big unlocker. How you implement it, how you drive your organization to make those decisions, how you convince your stakeholders from the CMO, CFO, and CEO. Those are the hard elements which I think are future focused and maybe where we have a chance with AI.
Yeah, I was going to come to AI later, but since you brought it up, I don't think we could have a podcast without it. I think I agree with you. I think we're seeing the mechanical aspects of data analysis and summarization and all of that is definitely being taken by AI, which leaves us as humans more time to go and do sort of the internal campaigning and value development, and also critical thought about how do we want to structure our system of marketing, and is it serving us? Where do you see that going? Do you see AI tools helping us to really embrace this systems approach to thinking, or are we still going to see people who are sort of mired in doing it the old way and just focusing on the advertising KPIs?
So I don't think anyone in this world would think that AI won't impact or won't help the future of marketing. The right question is in what kind of scope will it impact? Because it already has. I mean, the evolution of AI, which has been boosted by the launch of large language models, was not a stranger to marketing capabilities and marketing research even before the launch of ChatGPT. I mean, I've used models that were looking at consumer attention, that were looking at various kind of like behavioral metrics in research environments. And we're using AI computation to basically not large language models, but machine learning models to drive conclusions and to drive insights. So AI was always at the core of measuring the effectiveness of marketing. The layer that LLM brings is a layer of conversation, of layer of integration, which I think is what will help to think about systems.
Yeah, I'm very excited about AI's impact on marketing as well, because I think it gives us the opportunity to increase the volume of data that we look at, both structured and unstructured. And I think your point is well made about looking at large volumes of unstructured consumer insight and behavioral data, looking at how are people interacting, what are their attitudes, what are their impressions, and then making sense out of that. And I think that dovetails nicely with, you've shown that attention opens the door to people. It gets people on the hook in marketing, but it's that emotion that encodes that. And I feel like that's where the LLMs are going to help us make sense out of all of this emotional feedback and behavioral data that we're getting in order to improve the marketing output.
Absolutely. I think, everything that a researcher does is to improve the odds of a decision to be successful. And AI can only help improve that probability. No research will tell you for certain that consumers will act that way. It's absolutely impossible. But I think because now large data sets are easily to process, we will be able to increase that percentage of confidence, because at the end of the day, that's what it matters. It matters if we take route A or we take route B, if we choose campaign A or price B, and what's the confidence that we have in those decisions. So yeah, I mean, I'm very excited about AI. I'm also scared about AI at the same time. So it's something that I think about daily through the lens of my son, who's 10, and I don't know exactly how to guide him in his career. He became interested in like brands and marketing, but I honestly don't have a clue how to paint him the picture of what marketing will be in 12 years from now when he would graduate. It would be totally different, and I think it would be foolish to think that you can imagine how the world of marketing will look like in 12 years.
Yeah, I think if you could ask us 3 years ago if we thought marketing would look the way it does
Yeah.
today, the answer would probably be no. What are, you mentioned that you have fears. What are some of those fears specifically, especially in the shorter term?
So I fear I'm a firm believer, and I think I wrote it in the book that actually the best advice I would give my son is to get as many in real life experiences as he can, because I still believe that people will make decisions based on what other people that they like, appreciate, and trust will tell them to do, rather than what a prompt bot will tell them to do. Uh, Probably increasingly less, but still very, very relevant. So, having real life experiences and having a varied type of experience that are not in front of a chat prompt but in front of real people, that's I think what will make the difference going forward.
And that will dramatically affect how we measure marketing effectiveness, won't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that's the thing that, as a marketing leader, is the hardest thing for me to wrap my head around, is that how we define effective marketing is changing, and it's changing very rapidly. And being able uh, to to do effective planning and setting KPIs and thinking about effectiveness as a discipline that outlives the campaign, that outlives the current year KPI or current year target, I think that adds a significant layer of complexity for marketing leaders to grapple with, especially as we talk to finance and to others about how are we justifying our spend? What are we getting back for that spend? Um, what is your perspective on how marketers need to think about that?
I wish I would have like the perfect answer. I think we're learning. I'm learning along the way. It's because let's face it. I think technology has evolved much faster than any other field of business. I think if we would say that we've made progress in marketing, or we've made progress in measurement or in effectiveness, this pales to the progress that the tech companies have made in grabbing our attention, selling our attention, and offering us something in return for that. So, and that created a sort of fragmentation. Marketing is much more difficult today than it was 10 or 15 years ago, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to the point that in uh, in some companies, I'm certain that people are making only a set of decisions because there's simply not enough time to look at the entire marketing plan. Because you now, instead of a TV and a print ad and an out of home ad, now you have like seven types of audiences on Meta and two on TikTok, and you each execute a different creative, and one might have an equity effect desired, one might have a sales impact desired effect. So it's becoming extremely complicated, but I have trust in technical solutions that will be built on AI that would allow us not just to measure those impacts, but to actually run prompts of questioning how those impacts are intermingling with each other, or how they are basically talking to each other.
So it's if as I listen to you and I'm sort of processing this and putting things together.
I don't have the answer. I mean, I'm just trying to figure it out.
I don't think any of us do. None of us have the answer. I think that's what makes these conversations interesting. And it feels to me like a lot of the optimism you feel is that we will have the support to in a world where we have less and less time to work on these things because the pace of execution is increasing. The tools are helping us by giving us better synthesis on the insights so that we can build this culture around thinking about the decisions we're making and framing that up against the data and the insights. Because I feel like in the last several years, the marketplace has evolved rapidly, but we didn't have the insights. So we started relying more and more again on just going with your gut. And as we're seeing the scaling of channels and the complexity and it's harder and harder to justify spend based on your gut. So it feels a little bit like for those marketers who embrace this and say, I am going to leverage these tools to inform myself. I'm going to do research. I'm going to ask for behavioral insights to come back to me. And I will build a culture around considered decision making. Those are the marketers who will be successful going forward and will be able to operate in that system.
Yeah, I think the marketers, as you rightly said, the marketers that will be successful will be the one that will find a way to use all their data to make those decisions. But I'm also conscious from the point of view of the brand that we are overloaded with tools, and there is this syndrome of yet another SaaS platform that everybody needs to learn this week. So, which is just a reflection of how complex is the process that we are the business that we're trying to run here. So, I still haven't figured that out, but I think there is a role in all of the partners out there to clarify precisely what's the job to be done, what's the problem that they're trying to solve. Because I see a lot of suppliers of research that are basically offering absolutely everything and packaging that as a SaaS and then going to say that all of a sudden you will spend 1 hour a day working with this SaaS to manage your workflow. It's not working. I mean, I think there's maybe an agent could work on that SaaS, and then I will be able to converse with that agent. And so simplifying the complex should be like the number one goal for everyone in the MarTech space in the next years, I would say.
Is that, when we go back to thinking about marketing effectiveness, is that really where people should start? Is take a look at what they're doing now and try to simplify it and zoom out, look at marketing as a system, and then work on simplifying it so that you can create clarity in the organization? Or is there a different entry point that you would recommend?
I would think it's a different entry point, and I think the number one job to be done is to clarify what is effectiveness for your organization, and to align that message with everyone until it's 100% clear, to write it on the wall, and then once that is clear, to align it again. Because effectiveness has different definitions depending on who joined the C-suite in the last month. But if that changes, the bar changes continuously. So it's less, I would say that the challenge is less so about integrating the systems and thinking more holistically. It's really explaining what is effectiveness. To give you an example, at Mars, we looked at what are the drivers of effectiveness across communications, and we recognized, we knew from research, and it's published research, that creative is the number one driver of effectiveness, with approximately half of the impact of a campaign, overseeing anything that audiences or targeting or reach can do. So therefore, we defined communication effectiveness as creative effectiveness. So everybody in the organization was obsessed about creative effectiveness. We've put all our efforts. We've created a language around that creative effectiveness. We've invested in tools, and we continuously use those tools for years and years until the amount of insights accumulated so much that the compound effect generated amazing best practices and guidelines that are still in use today. So that's one example of thinking up, but also narrowing it down to one single thing. But again, if you just the reverse of that is that if you just look at creative effectiveness as that's a creative effectiveness and that's not marketing effectiveness. And there are other elements, if you look at an MMM output, that are much more impactful than the creative. It's your distribution, it's your sales on deal, it's anything that you can do around the physical availability that will be probably more important short term than your creative. So I don't know. It's a continuous tango, I would say. But having seen how different companies of large scale work, just because you're part of CPG doesn't mean that you think effectiveness is measured in the same way. So there are different. Everybody adapts that to their local culture, organizational culture.
Yeah, I think your point is well made, right? Defining what is, how do we want to think about effectiveness, and then identifying. So in that example, you identified sort of the prime mover was creative, and then that was where the emphasis was placed. Have you seen in general that there's always sort of a majority element that you can point to where you say, this is the lever that moves things, if we can affect that lever, so let's focus on that? Or do you run into situations, because I imagine that there are marketers listening to this right now who are like, yeah, if only I could say it was only creative, right? And
it's not just creative. I think it's everything. The curse of a large organization is that it has too many brains thinking about the problems of resource allocation. So besides the point of measuring the price effectiveness or promo effectiveness or communication effectiveness, you get into conflicting budgets. You get into different kind of internal politics, I would say, that stand in the creation of a unique set of measurement. But what I'm trying to build is not a solution. I'm trying to land the message that you need to think holistically about all these parts, and whether they come from the same tool or whether they come from different tools, that's almost not as important. How you see the interaction between, I don't know, communication and pricing and product is where the magic lies, I would say.
I think you used a really important word there, which is communication, which feels like, especially in large enterprises, that's often the battle that we fight is getting that communication, figuring out how to land your message internally. Do you have any advice for marketers who are listening to this, who are thinking, how am I going to go have these conversations?
You mean internal communication?
Yeah, to create, because if somebody's listening to this and saying, wow, you know what, I'm going to read the book, I think this is really important, this could help my organization. How do they get started in these conversations?
I think, as I mentioned before, I think identifying what's the real measure of effectiveness for that organization is something that should be front and center to any kind of endeavor in this phase. Then I think there is an element of consistency that shouldn't be overlooked. As they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. A marketing effectiveness practice isn't built in a day. So banging on the same message helps. I've spent almost 14 years at Mars running the same media effectiveness solution every month. So we didn't get tired. We didn't get attracted to the new toy in town because we knew that we wanted to have the same kind of compounding effect that's so magical. So set your definition or align that definition and only use that. Don't be bored by what you do. Don't try to find the next cookie. Do the same thing over and over. And what has worked for me is that we are humans, and we've always adore a little bit of competition. So any kind of measurement can be turned into a competition with like awards and like I would say positive competition. I still remember moments when different markets or different regions were competing to achieve like the best creative effectiveness score, and overall that was helping the organization. But it also brought that measure into spotlight, and it was very clear that this is how we talk about effectiveness when we talk about effectiveness. So those would be some elements that I would add. And yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, get a senior sponsor. I think it's very difficult to do anything if you start from a team of one. Your CMO, potentially also some other senior leader in the organization should be sold in first if you want to be successful, because otherwise it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, I think, and I totally agree on getting a senior sponsor, especially one outside of marketing, to help build more of a business coalition approach. But what I think is really important is that notion of relentless repetition and just staying focused. I think as marketers, we tend to want to be innovative and trying new things and experimenting. And if I hear you correctly, there's a place for that. You should certainly be experimenting in the creative to see what you can do, but you don't want to experiment every month trying a different way of measuring the output.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure I would say that. I think you should experiment in understanding your consumer. You should be creative in ways in which you can better understand your consumer. Because once you found the creative message or the creative brand platform that works, you should not change that creative platform just because you get tired of it. So I think, yes, in the creativity space, but more in the insight generation space. So don't get bored by methods. Get bored by how little you know about your consumer.
I love that. I think that's a key takeaway for our listeners, because I think there is this tendency to get wrapped up in the internal pieces and maybe not think so much about that your point of not knowing enough about the consumer.
I'm guilty as well. We do spend much more time talking about which format of media shall I use. Shall it be non-skippable ads or shall it be newsfeed ads? When the real conversation that we should be spending time would be around, is this the category I'm playing, or should the category be bigger? What are the category entry points? How are people actually perceiving that category? When do they use it? And try to understand those elements better than if it's a newsfeed on Meta or on Facebook, or if it's a story. I mean, the difference is marginal, I would.
Why do you think we get so caught up in talking about the formats and the internal stuff instead of what I think is perhaps more interesting, which is the consumer's mind?
Yeah, because I think that those companies that are driving that conversation are doing an amazing job. I think all the digital players are doing an amazing job at bringing those products or those brands front and center in the minds of marketeers through various executions. I mean, we not only that we use them in marketing, but we use them in our daily lives, so we know what we're talking about. And it's not as sexy to talk about when is my consumer group of toilet cleaner using that product, or when is a candy bought, or how is a candy bought. So I think, I mean, everybody can have an opinion about stories because they probably post stories. Not everybody can have an opinion about category entry points in carbonated beverages because it's much more complicated. So, but that's that's the role that marketing plays. It's not the role of choosing the channel of media.
I think
one of them, but it's a smaller one.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, is that marketing needs to really own the understanding of the buyer, uh, as part of understanding the dynamics of the marketplace. I mean, it's in our title. We're not,
Absolutely.
I think I think that's something really important to come back and anchor to, is that it's about understanding the consumer, and that rather than understanding the media platforms. Because, and I also think your point is well made about the fact that we fall victim to the marketing of the media companies who want to market these platforms to us. So they get us talking about this stuff, by marketing to us. So I think that's a lesson for all of our listeners to remember, filter out some of that marketing noise and focus on what's really important.
And I think I was thinking now while you were talking that maybe you and maybe all the CMOs should change their title, because you are chief marketing officer, but maybe you're a customer marketing officer. Because I think by having customer in your title, you are basically forced to think about the customer and not think about your role in the organization. So
there is a
food for
healthy
thought.
debate in the CMO community, actually, that the current debate is a little bit different, which is chief market officer instead of marketing officer. But I feel like it gets to that same place, which is, my job is to know my market, know my buyer, know what's happening, far above knowing the techniques and tactics of actually marketing, because those are the things that will change. They're changing in real time with AI and new channels and all of that stuff. And while that's important, what's really important is knowing what the customer's thinking and how they want to be spoken to, and what their perceptions are. And I think it's harder to get to.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, I think that when I start breaking down these topics into chapters in the book, the first chapter is about the effectiveness of your marketing strategy. While I can confess that it's very difficult to measure the effectiveness of a marketing strategy. It is something that we often go very fast through, because we want to get to the tactics and the execution. We want to choose the channel instead of thinking a bit more deeper about how do we segment that market, what's the category really, and because it's not easy. There are some uncomfortable conversation to be had, and it's as Steve Jobs used to say, strategy is saying no to 100 things that you could consider, and we don't like to say no. I mean, we just want to come up with whatever audience, whatever targeting, and then just go execute, because that's what we know how to do. So I'm trying to also elevate that the role of strategy to be a bit bigger in the conversation, rather than just thinking about media strategy, let's say.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to where we started the conversation, which is that strategy can't just be a media strategy or marketing strategy. It has to be a holistic strategy that involves pricing and product and a whole bunch of other teams that sit outside of marketing in many cases. And so it's about building that strategy together, identifying what's important, how you will define effectiveness, and then building the strategy around that.
Very well said. I would not repeat that, because you said it very well.
Well,
I need the notes. I need the transcript of this.
Well, that's the hope. My hope is that our listeners will be able to take the distilled conversation down, and then go buy your book. This has been such a fabulous conversation that we've had. And how do people get your book other than going into a bookstore on the street or at the airport?
I think, it's still, marketing effectiveness is still a niche topic. It's not the kind of Atomic Habits or Let Them kind of like bestseller. And the best place to buy it is online. It's available at all major booksellers. I'm not going to name names, but also the big ones. So yeah,
I think everybody knows who the big ones are.
So I'll be more than happy if any of your listeners are picking up the book and have any thoughts or ideas. You can always find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active, and I've also wrote the book to basically start conversations because we have never met, but I'm sure that just because this book was launched, this podcast was recorded, we're starting now a conversation that could end up into something else. So that's what I would like with everyone that reads my book.
I love this. Start the conversation. I don't think there's anything more important than that. Sorin, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been really wonderful.
Thank you very much for having me. And yeah, it's a pleasure.